Hi, I'm Melissa Muir. In this video, I'm going to share with you the essential hydraulic press system setup. These are just the tools and accessories that I feel like you would really need to have in order to be successful in having a hydraulic press system and incorporate those items into your body of work. So let's take a look at a few things now, including how I keep my items organized. So of course the first thing that you're going to need to start with is your hydraulic press. Now they can be built a number of different ways. There are a number of them that can be purchased that have been manufactured already. So you just want to take the time, look out your different options and see which one fits your studio needs the best. When I was looking for my hydraulic press, I wanted to have something that I knew was going to be sturdy, safe to use, and built well. And one of the things that I really liked about the Potter USA presses was how large their openings were. We ended up having 8 inches here rather than just 6 inches for some of the more popular frames or the plans that are available for building your own hydraulic press as well. So things that you want to look for are, again, your opening size. Now the jack that I have in mine is a taller profile jack. However, you can buy shorter profile jacks as well, and that will change the opening that you have inside of your press from top to bottom. Now, the platen is your flat surface that you're working on. In this case, we have a top platen. Now, Potter also sells a larger top platen, which is also magnetic. And again, that just helps you support your materials a little bit better. And I do like that he has changed them so that they are magnetic now. Now, some of the other presses that are out there will have a hole up here in the top, as does the Potter, so that it can accept some of these others. But you'll have a little peg, and then you just insert that peg and you can tighten your nut here, and that will hold everything into place. So again, it's just something that you'll want to look into. Now, another thing that I find super essential are platen, or spacers rather. Now spacers can be anything. Before I started getting some of these larger ones, and these are just aluminum plates, and you can pick these up. You can order them through Kevin Potter, or else you can always go to any of your metal fabricating places and buy scraps or have them cut it down to size for you. So in this case, these are 8 inches wide and they're about 3/4 to an inch thick. But before I had those, what I would use are just my steel blocks that I have here in my studio. So I would find any number of these and start creating these stacks. And what that stack of spacers does is it closes the space here from the top to the bottom, and it makes it so that I don't have to do quite as much work to raise my item up. Now, another thing that's important about spacers, you never want to fully extend the ram of your jack. You run the risk of damaging that where it actually kind of pops out, and then you have to go back in and rebuild the jack, and sometimes that's just not even worth it. So it's better if you use spacers to allow the press to keep that force and that pressure without overextending. One of the main reasons for me buying a hydraulic press was that I wanted to be able to add a lot of depth and dimension into my pieces, and that is done by using silhouette dies. I take a piece of urethane and I force it into an opening of a die, and that then gives me this nice puffed shape. Well, there's some tools that need to go along with that. Now, these are not necessary. These are containers. However, by using a container, you use a lot less working elbow grease or, a lot less of your own effort to make this happen. So what I have is I have a container, put my metal or my die in here. I would place my metal on top of this, follow it by a piece of urethane, and then because the press can't get into that to push that urethane down, we use a pusher. And then the press will give that pressure onto the urethane through this way. Now, by having a container, what happens is that urethane gets pushed. Well, normally the urethane will just kind of release that force in whichever direction it possibly can. So we would put force here, it would squeeze, and this would elongate out this way, and you would lose all of that pressure, so it's not nearly as effective. But by having a contained urethane system, you actually concentrate that force, because of course it hits the walls of this container. And where does that force go? Well, then it goes straight down, and that's what allows us to get this puffed shape. And again, like I said, this can be done without this system. However, to even get to this level of form on my metal, I would probably have to do it 2 or 3 times, annealing in between each one of them. And again, that's just because you lose so much more of that force out the sides of your piece. And you can see here that I have a couple of different sizes. And this is my 3-inch contained urethane. This is a 2-inch contained urethane. And there are dies that go into each one of them. However, I have also been known in a pinch to place a smaller item into even the larger contained urethane system. So just something to kind of keep in mind as you're working with it. Now when it comes to your urethane, there are a couple of different hardnesses, lots of different thicknesses, lots of different colors, and just know that the color doesn't mean anything. It just gives an indicator of what dye color they used when they were casting that urethane that day. So in this case, this is a 95 durometer piece of urethane. It's very, very hard, very stiff. You can see here that I cannot move this at all, at least not by my hands. This is something that I like to call a solid liquid. And I call it that because when the press comes in and actually exerts a lot of pressure, and we are talking a couple tons of pressure, this urethane will just kind of squish and ooze out. And as soon as you remove that pressure, it goes right back into this shape. So it's a fantastic material. And like I said, there are different hardnesses. 95 durometer is your hardest, and then you've got 80, and then you come all the way down to 65. Now you're not going to be able to really see this in this video, but this one I can actually move a little bit because it is much softer than that 95. And there are times where you would use different durometers, and again, it just bases it on what effect you're after. And that is a whole entirely different video altogether. Now, how do I store all of my silhouette dies? I actually have quite a collection of silhouette dies, and they do get quite heavy. So I found these little containers, and they are just the perfect size. I'm able to throw my items into here, stack them, organize them. No, I don't really see what they are, so when I'm looking for a die, I usually reach in here and we'll just kind of quickly go through until I find the die that I'm after. So that is a little bit time consuming. I'm not saying that my idea is the best, but it is kind of nice for me because it's nice and portable. I have a little rolling cart here underneath my bench. I just place it on top of that when it's not in use. So the next tool that I would consider an essential tool for having a hydraulic press system are the pancake dies. Now you can make your own, or you can purchase those that have been made by somebody else or in a mass production setup. Potter USA has quite an assortment of these. They are cut with a laser, which means that the kerf on them is not quite as sharp as if you had one that you were to hand cut or have hand cut. So there is a lot of time, some cleanup, but it's also a lot less expensive to buy one that is mass produced versus one of those that has been hand cut. To use a pancake die, you just take your metal, you insert it into this, and then you would take this into your press, apply the pressure, and it would pop your shape out. You pop your shape out here. On the back side of this, I happen to use this die for this one. I do have a bit of a burr all the way around on this. So I would need to clean this up with a file or a sandpaper, something like that. So there is a little bit of an effort there that has to be done into this. Now you'll also notice that I have a little tab here, and that is going to happen with any of your dies. And that is because you have a tongue here on your die itself, and the tab is just part of where that tongue connects to the die shape. Now, storing your pancake dies can be a little bit tricky. They are kind of nice because they're a little bit flatter, but if you're stacking them kind of like this, they are a little bit more difficult to see. So let me show you here what I've done for my system. So I have this CD rack, and of course So I have the CD rack here, and I don't use my CDs very often anymore. Matter of fact, most of them that I do have. I don't keep them in their cases anymore. So this is what I did with one of mine. And it's been a great little system. I can just come in, open this up, see what's in here, pull out a die when I figure that that's the die that I want. When I'm done, I will stack it back into here. Now, when I stack these in here, just so that they're not getting caught all the time on each other like this, what I do is I like to actually flip them over. So I have one facing up, one facing down, and then I stack them and store them this way. Now, I ran out of room in this because I do have quite a few dies, and let me show you here what I have done. I found a little book rack. Not the sturdiest thing, but it also had this great big opening. So I just took a couple pieces of wire, strung it in there, and now I can put this in here and not worry about my dies all falling down and through there. One of the next really great things that I like to do with the hydraulic press is to emboss items. Now again, I can buy embossing plates that have already been mass produced. They have a lot of fun different patterns and styles in them, or I can create my own, whether it's with wire or different types of found objects, found items. You just would place it on the bottom, place your metal on top of that, a piece of urethane, and then you would apply your pressure, and that will give you your embossed shape. So there's a lot of different fun things that you can do with that. Now in this case, in these 2-inch squares, I actually have a container system. And just like when I'm using the contain system on my silhouette dies, the contain system is also going to be really good right here because again, you are forcing that pressure down into your piece. I have found that when I use a contain system, I can apply about 4,000 pounds of pressure and get the same results as I would have to do 2 or 3 pressings worth on one without the container. So in this case, I just cut out a disc, placed it into onto my die here, my piece, and then I applied my urethane, put this into the system, put in my pusher, and then I applied the pressure, and that's how I got this great texture. And again, this took about 4,000 pounds of pressure, which is quite a bit more than what I would have to do if I were using like just a regular silhouette die, which I only have to go up to like 1,500 to 2,000 pounds of pressure. Now, when you're using some of these larger items to do your embossing, I find that I use a smaller piece of urethane, and what I will do is just work it in systems. And if you look out on YouTube, I have a couple videos that are out there on that kind of explain and show how to use that as well. So there's a lot of really good fun things that you can do with embossing, all sorts of textures that are now open to you that you wouldn't have had before. So the next thing that I would definitely suggest, especially if you're going to be making any kind of bracelets or cuffs, and with a hydraulic press, they are super simple to do, very quick, very easy. So in this case, I have a bracelet forming kit. Now, Kevin Potter does sell the 5 pieces here as a kit together, and you would get all 5 of these. And what this is you've got a frame here, and again, it's magnetic, so it just connects to the top platen of your frame. You just put it on there, and then there's also a magnet here, so all you have to do is just insert your bracelet mandrel that you are going to be using to create some bracelets. Now, I have a number of videos out there already showing how to use this system, so I won't get into that in this video, but just be aware that there are so many different options that you have. So we have the anti-clastic forms, and this is where I love this, where you've got a nice smooth curve that's going to fit up against the wrist here, and then it curves up and out this way, but then it also curves around your wrist. You get these nice oval shaped bracelets, which are very comfortable to wear. You can texture items before you form. So in this case, we have a fold form. This one I embossed while I was forming that. This one I ran through a corrugating mill and then did a synclastic forming. So again, there's a number of options, and it just depends on your body of work as to what you would need and how you would do this. One of my favorite things about having this kind of a system is that now I can etch an item, and then all I have to do is bring it over and form it on this. Now, if I wanted an anti-clastic bracelet in the past, I would have to do that with a stake, a sinusoidal stake, and a hammer. And in doing that, I'm going to remove that etched pattern that might be super delicate or whatever else. Other things that I have done is piercing before, while it's flat, and then I will form it on here. And none of that gets all stretched out. It doesn't get erased. It doesn't get indented. Or I don't mar my metal. It just forms it. Now this would need to be used in conjunction with a piece of urethane. So here you would take your bracelet mandrel, place it onto this. You would put your metal right against this, and it would form into the urethane. So you would make sure that you get that as well when you are purchasing this kind of a system. So now that you've seen some of the tools and accessories for the hydraulic press, how do you decide which is best for you to purchase? That is going to entirely depend on you and your body of work and what kind of work you're doing. When I bought my hydraulic press, I bought the press frame itself, the jack, I bought a couple of spacers, I bought the bracelet forming kit, I bought the contained urethane system, an extra piece of urethane that was 3 inches wide by 1 inch thick. I also purchased a handful of pancake dies and silhouette dies. I think I picked like 5 dies in each of those. And that is where I started. And by starting right there, you have a good range of tools that opens up your body of work. And from there, you can start to make your own silhouette dies. You can make your own pancake dies. Everything becomes customizable. And all of a sudden, your body of work can grow huge because now you have the ability to add all of this depth and dimension into your pieces that just was not available to you before. You would have had to have used a lot of different methods, including casting, chasing and repoussé, maybe even using like metal clay. There's just a lot more that you can do a little easier, and your production time also goes up quite a bit, especially if you are using those pancake dies to punch out your shapes that then you can then alter. And again, you can just look at some of my body of work to get an idea of what's really possible. And there are numerous ways that people are using this every day.